Joe Biden, former vice president, has an enthusiasm gap. What I mean by that is, it is true that Joe Biden is number one in the polls. It is true that number one status has remained rather sturdy. At the very least, from a national poll standpoint, it's fluctuating in various states. But the enthusiasm gap is real. What I mean by that is, a report just came out where they were looking at the online fundraising, and Joe Biden is not doing well. Joe Biden is not doing well at all. He doesn't look like a front runner if you're looking at online donations. The reason that online donations is important is because it goes with this notion of how much enthusiasm exists for the candidate, where people are willing to put their hard-earned cash on the line. I've said this almost months ago, that people were skeptical that Joe Biden could win and didn't necessarily want to put the big bucks in his pocket. Now, to be fair, he's been skating on those big bucks, but from the standpoint of online fundraising, not so much. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you enjoy this content and you find yourself coming back often, like, share, subscribe. This channel is growing. We've put on several hundred subscribers in a very short period of time. So if you're a newbie, welcome to the family. If you're an OB, I don't know if that's a term, thank you for coming back. And guys, if you definitely enjoyed this content, please consider supporting through PayPal or Patreon. $1, even $1 helps. And if not me and you find yourself going to some other channel, same thing with them. YouTube is an untrustworthy actor in these channels, and they demonetize in a whim. Joe Biden. So I said months ago, it was some report that came on the Hill that people were having, millionaires and billionaires, concerns with Joe Biden's campaign and didn't believe he had the stamina to get from point A to point B. Now, interestingly enough, in stamina point, Joe Biden does seem to have the issue with stamina. So much so that his own people are saying, maybe you need to take a break in the campaign. Maybe you need to take more naps. Maybe you need to, we want you to have less gaffes. And your mental fitness doesn't seem to be up to the test of the run. Fair enough. I'm going to go beyond that point, though. Online fundraising. There's a reason that the Democratic Party, whatever you want to think of it, use unique individual donations as a standard by which to determine who will be allowed on the debate stage. Part of that reason, a lot of that reason, has to do with this notion of a one-to-one between the number of people that would donate and support. The more people that would donate, meaning individual donors, you would think that would translate into a certain degree of support that is out in the public. People don't just throw their money away under normal circumstances. It's too hard to make a buck as is. If they're putting that buck behind a candidate, they're doing so because something in that candidate drives them to do it. They don't have to do it. Nobody's forcing them to do it. Nobody's hitting them with the head to do it. They are making the choice themselves to go out of their way to go to that candidate's site and say, yes, here's my $1. Here's my $2. Here's my whatever. Do good things with it. They don't have to. That's my point. Biden is having problems in this area. The article calls it boom bust. Essentially, Joe Biden is here one day, flash in the pan, and after that, being less than the other people in the race, even Buttigieg. Meaning Sanders, Warren, are doubling what Joe Biden is getting. I'm going to show you the charts in a minute. It is astonishing how little he's getting. And the other thing is, this guy doesn't look like a front runner if you're looking at the polling. Let me show you this first. Let me write this down. I don't want to forget it. This is political. So they make the point that in the beginning, when Joe Biden first gets into the race, he has a huge bump. He has a massive bump. Because Biden came into the race with, $13,000? More. So, let me see. Biden came into the race, right here. Joe Biden raised $4.6 million online his first day in the 2020 race. That's a big bump. Total, Biden has raised $13.2 million. Oh, I'm sorry, $13.2 million online. 60% of the $13.2 million online that Joe Biden raised came on that first day. So think of it this way. For the entirety of the time Joe Biden has been in the race, he's raised $13.2 million. 60% of all of that money came in the first day. Unlike Beto O'Rourke, Biden has enjoyed a steady stream of high-dollar, in-person events with big donors to bolster his finances, putting him among the top Democratic fundraisers in 2020. But online totals are a sign that Biden has not built an enthusiastic grassroots support for his presidential campaign, despite his lead in the polls. Now, they may look at that and say, well, that's weird. How does he have such a lead in the polls, but the guy can't raise any money? And raising your money, again, translates to this notion of enthusiasm. People are excited about your campaign, and they're excited, but that excitement translates into, here's cash. How is he leading in the polls to such a dominant degree, but he can't get it up in terms of fundraising, at least online? Big ticket now. Big ticket. Rich people giving him cash, yes, but not online fundraising. So another part I want to show. These are the charts. This chart doesn't fully make sense until you can see it individually. So let me get this out of the way. So this is Warren's. Warren's fundraising is surging. Get this out the way. Why can't I move that? Okay. This is Warren's fundraising. Notice it's small, but it starts to go up. Warren started to get really good from the standpoint of fundraising, especially as the time went on. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, in 1 month she even caught Sanders, or the last month she caught Sanders. All right, so this is Warren's. Buttigieg, again, spike with a few other spikes. Sanders, they call it a blockbuster campaign launch. Right here, bam, big spike. It goes down. This is just February. Now, Sanders has what they call a power month. The 19th of every month. Apparently, there is a reoccurring donation, or there's some kind of trend that there's a reoccurring donation each month on the 19th, where he gets a massive jackpot, an infusion of cash. On June 19th, for example, 31,000 donors contribute $391,000 to the Sanders campaign. Reoccurring donations. Right here. Bam. 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 And you get all of these mini spikes. Now, after the debates, if you remember, Sanders raised a ton of cash. That's that line. That's that line. Wait. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. That debate was in July. When Joe Biden entered the race. Is that when Joe Biden entered the race? That can't be right. Okay, this is the power month. So what is this? I want to say that's the debate, but don't quote me on that. Because if I am not mistaken, the second debate was in July, so that can't be the debate. I don't know what that spike is. But again, that's a spike of cash from the standpoint of Sanders. These are unique donations. And this is Biden's. That's sad. That's sad. It's like, bam, big spike. And just stays there. Biden entered the field in late April to a huge online fanfare. He raised a colossal $7.9 million on ActBlue during the first week that he was in the race. That included $466,000 the day Biden held a much publicized rally with union members in Pittsburgh. Biden's early online fundraising from his launch week amounted to 60% of his overall online fundraising from the first quarter of the campaign. After his impressive initial week, a median or middle-of-the-road fundraising day for Biden campaign brought in $65,000. A similar day for Sanders, Buttigieg, or Warren during the same time frame raised between $120,000 to $149,000 for their campaign. Now, just to be clear, Sanders and Warren are in 2 and 3 spot. Buttigieg, I don't know where Buttigieg is. He's like 6th, 7th. From a fundraising standpoint online, these are top tier campaigns. They are doubling what Biden is raising online. To put it in perspective. This is why they say, boom and bust. Kamala Harris was raising less money in the early summer. Her median in May and June was $37,000. Her money apparently has gone up since then, but if you're looking for a median. Harris laid into Biden in the first Democratic debate and hit a fundraising gusher. I keep telling you, debates are important. Man, nobody listens to me on this stuff, but I keep telling you, debates are dramatically important. Debates are the thing that people see you. That's like their main time, their first time seeing you, especially people like Kamala Harris, where they may not necessarily be paying attention to. After that first debate where she put that knife in Joe Biden, do you realize people were like, she seemed presidential? They knew nothing of her other than what they saw in that debate. And it's like, she seemed presidential. She seemed like, she could be great commander-in-chief. Astonishing. All right, so here's the thing. And I would explain this, and I think I'm right. I always say I think I'm right. Because I do hold out the possibility that I could be wrong. I could be strong on arguing a particular point because I think strength in arguing a political disposition is proper. You are advocating a certain position. Other people are also folding in that position. And if you're going to be their advocate, you got to be strong at what you do. That in person, however, creates problems. And I find myself, because of the way I do the channel and everything else, and it's like you do this constantly, it becomes just you. And so arguing, even when you're arguing in person, you kind of go with that same level of strength regardless of what you're arguing. My wife is right. I'd rather win a fight and lose a friend. Because I'm normally right. Otherwise I wouldn't be arguing. Joe Biden. So the reason why this is true, and people might be like, well, that's weird. How on earth is Uncle Joe, Sleepy Joe, holding his polling lead like this? I mean, his polling lead is like 10 points above everybody else. How is that taking place? How he's able to do that and yet has little to no support online, especially in comparison to the top tier campaigns? I'm glad you asked that question. I will tell you the answer to that. Electability. Sanders supporters and Warren supporters, take a look at this. Warren and Sanders supporters stand out for policy. So when you look at the reason why people are voting for who they're voting for Biden, electability, 31%. Personal characteristics, 31%. Policy positions, 21%. Warren, 31%. Personal characteristics, 25%. Policy positions, 38%. Sanders, electability, 10%. Why are you voting for Sanders? Because he's electable? No, that's not why I'm voting for Sanders. Personal characteristics, 28%. They like who he is. He seems genuine and earnest. Policy positions, 43%. Sanders supporters, more than anything else, and Warren supporters, more than anything else, care about policy. And what that means is, this person is going to do something to make my life better. So me giving this person $1, $2, $10 is essentially an investment into a political situation that is in my best interest. That guy's my avatar. That's the horse I'm riding. That gets you out of bed in the morning. It excites you. If you've ever been to a Bernie Sanders rally, it is a love fest. And he just gets out there and he just bashes policy. One thing after the next. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We can do this if we come out together. We can have a united vision for this country. This could be a better world. It gets people out of bed. I'm going to get rid of your school debt. Yes! That's my guy. Bam! Here's $10. They're excited by it. It gets them out of bed. We can do Medicare for all. We can do big things. You can have nice things. We can get together and we can make this world a better place. A better world is possible. But we need to do this together. And it would take a political revolution to do it, meaning all of us. Not me, us. That's his argument, literally. Not me, us. And in one position after the next, it is grand, it is euphoric, it is expansive. And you can say he's trying to offer ponies. But I tell you this, you have to start off at the very least with what do you want to do? What is your vision? What do you want to accomplish? And from the standpoint of deciding what you want to do, you figure out how. All sorts of things are possible. The moment that you decide those are the things I want to do, you make a determination on your priorities. And you go from there. It's the richest country on the planet. Oftentimes, the people who are telling you you can't have nice things are the people who would have their taxes raised, who may be curtailed in the standpoint of some business or some kind of financial interest that they're involved in. You can't have nice things because it would adversely affect my great, beautiful things. Policy gets you out of bed in the morning. Policy allows you to hit a button saying, yes, I want that candidate. That's what policy does. Because policy directly affects you. Even if it affects you from the standpoint of this is what I want the world to look like, it affects you. Electability does not. Electability doesn't get you out of bed in the morning. Electability is which one of these schmucks can beat Trump. And the sad part is, the people who are saying that Biden is electable are the same people who thought Hillary Clinton was electable. And at no point did doubt creep into their mind in regards to their perspective of the outside world. Electability is literally an appraisal of out there. This effusive, this hazy thing of the outside world that we have in our heads that we think that the outside world is. That's what electability is. But that doesn't dig in you from the standpoint of this is going to be great for me. It's more so in the standpoint, I hate Trump. I want him out of office. Which one of these schmucks could get that across? Which one of these schmucks will the public buy into? That's what electability is. That's different than policy. If you're wondering why there is an enthusiasm gap for Joe Biden, if you're wondering why that enthusiasm gap exists while simultaneously him being number one in the polls, I put to you that's why. The reason that people are supporting Biden has nothing to do with things that they believe is going to greatly benefit them. They just want him to win. Just because you want him to win, that's not the thing that gets you out of bed to give that person cash. Being excited. Being under an idea of a vision, man. Like, John F. Kennedy, and I've shown this speech before, one of the best speeches ever in politics, gets on a podium, gets on a thing, and say, we're going to the goddamn moon. That's what we're going to do. We're going to the moon. And they're like, what? What? Yes, we're going to the moon. We do this because it tests the best of our abilities. And I don't remember the entirety of the speech, but how he phrased it and all this other stuff was fucking euphoric. Do you believe they had the technology to go to the moon when John F. Kennedy said that? They did not. They did not. And even when they went, the technology they had was to the degree of like a calculator. Not even our advanced ones. They made a choice on what they wanted to do, and they did it. I'm saying the same thing is true for matters in a political sense. You start with what you want to do. It always annoys me. People like Delaney, who would spend $19 million of his own cash, throw it on the fire, and then get on the stadium and say, we can't have Medicare for all. Dude, you just burned $19 million of your own money. You had so much cash that you literally just burned through $19 million of your own money to tell us that we can't have nice things. Yes, we can have nice things. You set the vision. You decide what you want to do. And you make the political choices in regards to priorities. And you do it. It's not impossible. You have millionaires being paid by billionaires to tell you that you can't have nice things. to attack Sanders when he says those things. But you can, again, understand why. Their priorities are not your priorities. Those guys are millionaires. Do you honestly believe people who are in the top 1% are going to espouse an opinion and a disposition that is going to in any way entirely get and understand the pressures that are put on everyday people, let's say the 90% of the population? They are not. They are not. You may want them to, but just from a disposition of not being able to relate, they are not. They're not. Yes, they're going to attack Sanders. Yes, they're going to attack Medicare for all. Yes, they're going to attack college. All that stuff. I tell you this, though. If it passes in 10, 15 years, it will be settled. It'll be settled. It'll be like Social Security and Medicare. The lift is always harder. The moment that it's in society for a bit, people consider it to just be normal. The problem is that everybody considers this to be normal. There is no such thing as normality. Normality is only relative. What do you want your world to look like? We're going to the goddamn moon. We do this because it tests the best of our abilities. When John F. Kennedy gave that speech was awesome. Because there's so much propaganda in that speech. It's beautifully propagandistic. And yet, I don't care about the propaganda. He says, we want that freedom and justice and democracy, and that freedom and justice means it needs to be in America's hands, and we need to be in control of that process in order to be freedom. It is an amazing speech. God, that is an amazing speech. And then we get to today where we have Democrats like Delaney that gets on stage and says we can't have nice things. Sad day for Biden. Sad day for Joe Biden. Porter Film Co-op. H.A. Goodman, HRC, will enter the race as Biden fails. Oh, God. He didn't say that. There's no way he said that. There's no way he said that. Saxzilla, I don't really vote to have a million rich people and the minions hung, so we're moving quickly. It's wild. I was reading, I was listening to a debate. God, we're going off the rails. We're going way off the fucking rails. I was listening to, I started researching the Russian Revolution. And, at this point I've gone through World War I and II, and it just seems like the most natural thing in the world to hit at that point. And I was listening to a debate going on between a guy who hated Lenin and a guy who loved Lenin. And it was a fascinating debate between these two people. It gets into what we're talking about now, this kind of bourgeois democracy and this ability to be able to push the society into a direction of a socialist, democratic socialist system. And how the second revolution was necessary. Because, there's a scene, or there's this, well, I said a scene, but where Stalin is sitting down and these guys come in, he's dejected. He realized Barbarossa's started. The Germans are invading. And he doesn't want to believe it. And he doesn't want to believe it to such an extent that he is giving them like copper and oil and all this other stuff just to say, don't attack me, dog. Don't attack me. They knew they were going to get attacked at some point, but he was hoping that if he give this stuff up to Stalin, Hitler will be leaving to his own devices. That wasn't the case at all. In fact, Hitler looked at it as they've taken so much territory, we need to attack them. Now, Hitler was going to attack them anyway. He was using that as a pretext. But nevertheless, Stalin was sitting there thinking that they were going to arrest him. Like, it's a fascinating scene. He was like, Lenin created our system and now we fucked it up. The catch is, the first revolution was by women. I knew that part. The second revolution was Lenin. And that's when shit got bloody, man. That's when shit got bloody. But the catch is, the elites were never going to give up their system. And there were various people who were still invested in the previous system that would have hindered any notion of trying to push that system into a democratic socialist system. Yeah, things got bloody. It's fascinating. What does Hitler have to do with Biden? Not one thing, Colada. Baltazar, I'm one of the higher income earners who are advocating for the removal and redistribution of wealth as I see both Guillotine Assurance, It's the only sustainable option going forward. Guillotine Assurance, right? I know, right? I know. Guillotine Assurance. Stephen Koenig. Well, I've heard lectures of his. Portofilm Co-op. I've heard lectures of his. He's not a fan. You know, it's interesting when people do books on that stuff. They have a certain respect for the person, even though they also have a disgust for the person. It's so weird. I chafe at reading Western authors exclusively to talk about the Soviet Union because there's a bias associated with Western authors. Beaver, for example. Beaver writing books in Berlin and Stalingrad. There's a grudging respect. By the same token, there is a disgust that comes through the writing of it. He greatly dislikes the characters that he's talking about. Koenig, making the books of Stalin. So I've seen multiple lectures of his. I've even seen him do this kind of interview with Slavoj Žižek. He's interesting, dislikes Stalin but respects him. I mean, that's always this kind of weird thing. It's like a grudging respect for trying to rip the Soviet system in the way it is. By the same token, utterly disgust because the guy had murdered like 1 million people, or 40 million people. Yeah, it's fascinating. All right, I'm going to end this because we're way in the weeds, and I'm going to have to cut this video in half. Portofilm Co-op. H.A. Goodman absolutely said that, and have been saying it for months, that Hillary Clinton is ready and waiting for a moment. Oh, God. Oh, no. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Yeah, French. Yeah. No, Balthazar, I got it. French Revolution, I know. French Revolution is a reference for the Guillotine Assurance. And income inequality continuing, right, to increase, fuels society, economic collapse, and horrific environmental problems. Yes. You know, people don't realize that. Like, one of the leading indicators of economic collapse is income inequality. This notion that income is expropriated to a very small minority of people. And to some degree, that kind of makes sense. I mean, you have a small percentage of people that is governing for themselves. That money, that financial power buys political influence. That political influence, meaning political instrument, is not governing in the way that it was crafted to do so, meaning this notion of, even if it's just a fig leaf, for the rest of the population, for the majority, for the 99%, it's governed for the 1%. And this kind of oligarchical system, is one of those leading indicators of financial collapse. They don't make choices that are good. They make choices that are in their best interests. Those are different things. This is not a United States. We have different interests in this country. We've always had different interests in this country. Calling it the United States is a certain degree of propaganda in order to get people under one umbrella. Imagination. You know, one of the most interesting things in human beings is imagination. Your laws aren't real. Your government's not real. Many of the things that we talk about are just conceptual. There's nowhere that law exists. You can write it in a book. And if the aliens came to the planet, picked up the book, they would have no idea what it is. That book is real. The ink is written on is real. Or the ink is real. The pages are real. The law is not. It's conceptual. It exists entirely in you. I say that to say this. Our imagination, this ability to believe in imaginary things, allows for 300 million people to exist under one umbrella, in which we call the United States. That imaginary thing of the United States literally allows a certain degree of general unity among all of these people who are disparate in all of these other various ways. It's like this ability to have an imagination in and of itself allows this. It's a fascinating fucking thing, man. Fascinating fucking thing. You're lost in moral relativism. Not lost in moral relativism. And by the way, morality is not absolute. So, I mean, if you want to call it that, fair enough. But morality is not absolute. All right. I'm going to end this because we are way in the fucking weeds. And I have like 5 other stories that I wanted to do today. So, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all. I'll see you momentarily.